Hi guys, Mimi G here with a new sew along. I have two new simplicity patterns. We're going to start with simplicity 8927, which is a fantastic top and skirt. The skirt comes in two lengths. I'm going to show you how to sew both. Let's get started. All right guys, we're going to be working on 8927. We're going to start with the skirt, which is view D or C. Now the only difference in the skirt is the length, so you can decide whether you want to make the shorter version or the longer version. For this sew along, I'm going to be sewing the longer version. Now on the back of the pattern envelope, you will always find a list of fabric recommendations. You can use a linen or a broadcloth or a lightweight denim. You can do this out of just about anything. So let's go over the pattern pieces that you need. Now pattern piece number 10 is our pocket. Now you can decide whether or not you want back pockets, but if you do, I'm going to go ahead and sew them on. Pattern piece number 13 is our waistband. You're going to be cutting one of fabric and one of interfacing. Pattern piece number 11 is our front facing, and you're going to be cutting one of fabric and one of interfacing. Then you're going to notice pattern piece number 12, which is the left front facing. You're also going to cut one of fabric and one of interfacing. Then you have pattern piece number 9, which is the back of our skirt, and you're going to be cutting out 2. Then we have pattern piece number 7, which is our right front, and you're going to cut 1. Then we have pattern piece number 6, which is the front of our skirt. You're going to cut 1. And lastly, you have pattern piece number 8, which is the left front, and you're also going to cut 1. Once you have all your fabric cut and your pieces interfaced, we can start sewing. All right, guys, so I want you to go ahead and stay stitch the top of your skirt pieces. We're going to stay stitch, and then we're going to pin together the front and right front sections. Okay, so that's number 6 and 7. You're going to make sure that you're matching up those notches. Okay, that's how you know that you're piecing the right pieces together, and we're going to pin. Okay, we're going to head to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you've sewn your front to the right front together, go ahead and either press your seams open or serge them together and press to one side, which is what I'm going to do. Then I want you to grab your 2 back pieces and you're going to create your darts. All right, once you have serged or pressed your seams open or to one side, you can go ahead and set this aside for just a second. You're going to grab your 2 back pieces. You should have already made your back darts. And then you're going to pin along the center back, just like I did here. And you're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to finish off your seam the same way you did for your previous pieces. All right, guys, now that you have your darts sewn and you have your center back sewn and your seams finished and pressed to one side or open, depending on what you did, we're going to go ahead and work on our pocket. So you should have marked your pocket placement on the back of your skirt. And what we're going to do is you have 2 options. You can either serge the very top of your pocket the way I've done here, or you can press it down 1/4 of an inch. Now, whichever one you choose, what you're going to do is you're going to fold it right sides facing along the fold line. So you should have marked your fold line, and we're going to pin. You're going to do that to both of your pockets. Okay, now let's head over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how I stitch along the edge so that I can turn exactly where I need to. Okay, so if you serged the edge of your pocket, it's going to look like this. If you folded it, you should have it looking something like this. Now we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but we're going to go ahead and continue stitching all the way down and across the bottom of our pocket so that we give ourselves a guide. Back stitch at the beginning. Okay, so as you can see, I have pressed my pocket. So you're going to use your stitching as a guide to press under your seam allowance. You're going to press both sides and the bottom. And then when you're done with that, you're going to top stitch across the top the way you've seen me do here. Now we're gonna go ahead and pin these to the back of our skirt. Using your 2 dots, go ahead and pin your pocket in place. Now very carefully, you're gonna head to your machine and you're going to edge stitch along the sides and the bottom. Okay, once your pockets are in place, we can go ahead and attach our side seams. So grab your fronts. You have a left front. Make sure to align your notches. And you're gonna pin. Okay, now you're gonna grab your right front and front, which you sewed together. And right sides facing, making sure that you align at your notches. You're gonna pin. Okay, and just like before, using a straight stitch, you're going to sew both your side seams together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, guys, now that you have your left front and your right front attached at the side seams, we're gonna go ahead and do our facings. So number 7 shows you both facings. Remember that they need to be interfaced, and we're going to place them right sides facing. Now you should also have a notch on both of your facings. So align at your notch first and pin. And then you're going to pin the other side. Now again, using a straight stitch, you're going to stitch your facing onto the front of your skirt using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you've sewn your facing to your skirt, we're gonna go ahead and understitch. So making sure that your seam allowance is towards your facing, we're going to stitch close to the edge. Once you have understitched both of your facings, you can go ahead and finish the edge of your facing by either pressing under a 1/4 inch and top stitching or serging. Okay guys, now we're at step 8. We're gonna attach our waistband. So now that we have our facings pressed and understitched, grab your waistband, and on the unnotched edge, you're going to turn and press 1/2 of an inch seam allowance. Now we're gonna go ahead and pin this to our waist. Now making sure that your facing is pressed to the inside, we're gonna go ahead and start pinning. Your waistband is gonna extend 5/8 of an inch from each end, just like this. And just continue pinning, matching your notches all the way across the top of your waist. Okay, once you're done pinning, you're gonna go ahead, head to your sewing machine, and you're going to stitch your waistband on using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you're done attaching your waistband to your skirt, you're going to go ahead and fold your waistband right sides facing, and we're going to stitch close using that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're gonna close off the other end the same way. Okay, you're gonna go ahead and trim off the corner. I'm gonna take a little bit off as well. And you're gonna turn this to the right side. I'm gonna poke out my corner. You're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now I want you to go to your ironing table and you're gonna press your waistband in half. you're gonna slightly pass your stitching line. So you wanna press, making sure that the folded edge of your waistband is just past your stitching before we pin it in place. Okay, once we have it nicely pressed, as you can see in step 10, we're gonna pin on the right side. So what you're gonna do is you're going to grab your pin, you're going to pin right at that seam, making sure that you can feel the underside and you're catching the under part of your waistband. And you can sort of definitely feel it. So pin in your seam, making sure to grab the bottom portion of your waistband. Continue along the entire waistband. Okay, once you have your waistband pinned, we're gonna go ahead and we're going to stitch in the ditch. Okay, so we're gonna be stitching in the ditch, meaning we're going to stitch right in that seam line. You're gonna go very slow and carefully. Once you're done, your stitching should almost be invisible and should be catching the underneath of your waistband. All right, guys, so now we're at step 11. We're gonna go ahead and make our buttonholes. So you should have marked your buttonhole placement on the side that has your right front, and then your buttons are gonna go on the side that is just your left front, so just like it is in the picture. So go ahead and make your buttonholes following whatever your instructions are for your machine. I'm gonna show you how I make mine. Okay, so I'm gonna switch out my presser foot and put my buttonhole foot in it. I'm going to size it. So this is the button I'm gonna use. I'm gonna place it and then pull the lever and select my buttonhole. Now I know my buttonhole is going to be made going backwards, so that's why I'm facing this direction. Yours might be a little different, so it just depends on what machine you have. I'm gonna make the rest of my buttonholes the same way. You should have 6 along the front. All right, guys, you're gonna go ahead and hand sew your buttons when you're done. The final step for us is to finish off the hem of our skirt. So what you're gonna do is you're going to turn your facing to the right side, like this, and go ahead and pin. And we're gonna stitch across using a 1 1/4 inch hem allowance. Okay, so I went ahead and stitched, just like I did for the pocket, all the way along the hem at that 1 1/4 inch mark so that I have a guide when I'm pressing my hem to the inside. I just make sure that when I press, I make sure that the stitch is to the inside and not visible on the outside of my skirt. So I'm gonna trim my corner. You're gonna do that on both ends. Turn it to the right side. I want you to poke out your corners on both ends, head to your ironing table, and press your hem along your stitching line. Okay, as you can see, I went ahead and pressed my hem line, and everything is really nice and even because you have that sort of guide to help you fold and press. Now you can go ahead and stitch your hem in place, stitching on the right side so that the bobbin thread is on the bottom and not on the top. All right, so as you can see, I'm stitching on my right side and I'm using my guide to help me stay exactly where I need to be. And you're going to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, once your hem is sewn down, give it a good press, sew on your buttons, and you are all done. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this sew along. Please make sure and follow me on Instagram if you're not following already, at MimiGStyle, and make sure and tag me in all of your amazing creations. Until next time, peace.